I want to pick up green. Jaipur is very good for
Today is 18th September.
Yeah.
We start with the second section of chapter 6 of Dhyan Yoga. Easy is the acronym for chapter 6. The acronym for chapter 5 was STEP. Krishna re-emphasizes that you have to stay in this world, correct? And T stands for? Do you remember? STEP. TT. Three doers. After speaking about the three doers, Krishna said that you have to identify the third doer, that is the Paramatma, who has equal vision. So E stands for equal vision. And how do you get the peace formula? After giving a hint of the 6th chapter, he says the peace formula is that you recognize that Supreme Lord as Bhoktaram, the enjoyer of all sacrifices, Sarva Loka Maheshwaram, the Lord of all the demigods, of everything that is around, and the best friend, well-wishing friend. Do you remember that word Surit? We were talking about the word Surit, Mitra Bandhu and Surit, ever well-wishing friend. Correct? After that, that's how you get, when you recognize that Surit, that well-wishing friend, that is the formula for peace. Correct? And then we start with chapter 6, which is the third option or the third rung of the yoga ladder. What is the first rung? Do you remember? Yeah, the lowest is Karma Kand, and then there is Karma Yoga, and then there is Jnana Yoga, and then there is Dhyan, and then finally there is Bhakti. This is the order that Krishna has presented, the options that Krishna has given to place to Arjun. So we are just about to start the Bhakti Kand or the Bhakti chapters from chapter 7 onwards. Before that, we are doing chapter 6, where the acronym is easy. E stands for enemy or friend, what we finished last time, verses 1 to 9. Correct? Now what did we read in verses 1 to 9? Quick gist I'll be describing. This chapter begins with Krishna saying that not doing work is again not an option. Correct? So in a way he is already negating Dhyan Yoga. How? We'll see. Ashtanga Yoga or Dhyan Yoga, this particular word we'll be using interchangeably. Sometimes calling it Ashtanga Yoga, sometimes calling it Dhyan Yoga, or English translation of Ashtanga Yoga is eightfold path or eightfold mystic yoga. Is that okay? So in case I use these words interchangeably, don't get confused. So I'm writing these three words here. Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyan Yoga, eightfold mystic yoga means the same thing. Is that okay? So in this path, in the beginning of the chapter itself, Krishna says, a perfect mystic is one who works. Not one who lights no fire and performs no duty. The one who doesn't have a sense of proprietorship or the sense of possessiveness is actually the perfect sannyasi. Then in verse number 2 he says that what is actually yoga? Yoga means linking oneself to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Correct? And in verse number 3 he says that there's a beginning stage and then there's an end stage. Correct? And in verse number 4 he says that a person elevated in yoga, having renounced all material desires, he neither acts for sense gratification nor in fruitive activities. Then he speaks about the mind. How to do that? How is Dhyan Yoga practiced? With the help of the mind. This mind is a tool which is important in Dhyan Yoga or in Ashtanga Yoga or in the eightfold mystic. The major hitch here is to control the mind. So here Krishna says that one should deliver himself with the help of his mind and not degrade himself. Correct? And then he gives a sutra. He says that why do we need to do this? How do we deliver ourselves? Identify that a controlled mind is actually a friend. And an uncontrolled mind is a enemy. And then in verse number 7 he says, one who has conquered the mind, the super soul is almost reached. Because a controlled mind will always listen to the Paramatma's dictation. And when the mind is uncontrolled, who does the mind listen to? I pagal. Illusion, pride, anger, greed, envy, lust. These 6 masters dominate an uncontrolled mind. When the mind is controlled, it listens to the Supreme Person who's sitting in our heart. Is that okay? Fine. So verse number 7 is done. Verse number 8, what does Krishna say? Here he says a person is said to be established in self-realization, kind of a summary he says when he is satisfied by virtue of acquired knowledge and by applying knowledge he has realization. With experience you get realizations, correct? Just by studying it doesn't click. Knowledge when applied in practical life is when it clicks. It gives you realization. And then such a person is situated in transcendence and is self-control. He sees everything, whether it be pebbles, stone or gold, as the same. Means he doesn't have more, he doesn't get illusioned with the weapons of Maya. Which is actually the weapon in I think Parikshit Maharaj, there's a story where Kali, he asked shelter from Parikshit Maharaj. Parikshit Maharaj is the grandson of Arjun, the son of Abhimanyu and Uttara, right? And at that time, Kali is the personification of this Yuga, Kali Yuga. He's a dominated personality. Now he is the one who brings about Kali Yuga, and all these miscreants are actually his, what do you say, chele? What do you call them? Like that, chamche followers, huh? So that's how Kali does things. So there, at that point of time, Kali could not enter till the time there was the dominance of a pure devotee, Parikshit Maharaj. And at that time, Kali told that please give me shelter. And a devotee is always merciful. So where did Kali give shelter to, Parikshit Maharaj give shelter to Kali? Where there is too much gold. When there is too much gold and there is gambling. These 4 principles: meat eating, illicit sex, intoxication, and meat eating, gambling, intoxication, and one more, illicit sex. Then is that okay? The 4 things. Wherever these things are there, you can go and stay there. Now, the thing is, the entire planet Earth was being ruled by Parikshit Maharaj. And there was obviously no place for these things. So Kali was thinking, now where do I go? There is one option which he gave, is that where there is too much gold. So that's how Kali brought about Kali Yuga, from Dwapar to Kali, by residing in places where there is too much greed, too much gold. Correct? So here Krishna emphasizes that a yogi is one who doesn't make any difference between a stone or gold. There's one joke where Prabhupada cracks, he says that, gold, even if it is fallen in stool, people will still take it out. It's anything else, you wouldn't even look at where there is, stool paths. But if there's gold, people will still go and take it out. So that's the power of gold. To see things equal, to see a stone and gold without any difference is very difficult. It takes a lot of detachment, understanding material energy, understanding this, the power of all these attractions, greed, is very difficult. So Krishna says this is the qualification of yogi. And then in 9th one he says, again still further who is advanced, not only one who is not attracted to sense objects, a person who sees everyone equally, a friend, a well-wisher, and benefactors, affectionate benefactors, neutral mediators, the envious, all these people who see, he sees them as equal. He behaves the same throughout with each and every category of person. Such a person is a real yogi. Now with this consciousness is how you start with Ashtanga Yoga. My agenda is to control the mind. Krishna has made that clear. And what consciousness I must have? My material possessions. No possessiveness. Just pass around the attendance sheet. So can we start with the next thing? 10 to 36. So what we have to do is we have to read the shlokas. I can't recollect. We're starting reading and we came till 16th. We came till 16th, am I right? So I'm just reading the translations up to the 15th one and then we'll start reading the shlokas together. Translation of chapter 6, verse number 10. Anyone needs Gitas, it is there, huh? Bhagavad Gitas are there. 6.10. A transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind and self in relationship with the Supreme. He should live alone in a secluded place and should always carefully control his mind. He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. 11 and 12 is together. Start the translation. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and should lay kusha grass on the ground and then cover it with a deer skin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart by controlling his mind, senses and activities and fixing the mind on one point. Verses 13 to 14. One should hold one's body, neck and head in an erect straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Is that okay? Verse 15. Thus, practicing constant control of the body, mind and activities, the mystic transcendentalist, his mind regulated, attains to the kingdom of God or the abode of Krishna by cessation of material existence. Verse Jnatashnastastu yogosti नैचैकान्तमश्नतः न चाति स्वप्नशीलस्य जाग्रतो नैव चार्जुन. We're doing the 16th one, huh?
Yeah.
Translation. There is no possibility of one's becoming a yogi, O Arjuna, if one eats too much or eats too little, sleeps too much or does not sleep enough. So all the party goers should be yogi. Verse 17. Yuktahara viharasya yuktacheshtasya karmasu yuktasvapnavabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkhaha. Translation. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. Verse 18. Yada viniyatam chittam atmanyeva nispraha sarvakamebhyo yukta ityuchyate tada. Translation. When the yogi, by practice of yoga, disciplines his mental activities and becomes situated in transcendence, devoid of all material desires, he is said to be well established in yoga. Verse 19. Yatha dipo nivatastho nengate sopama smrita yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogamatmanah. Translation. As a lamb in a windless place does not waver, so the transcendentalist, whose mind is controlled, remains always steady in his meditation on the transcendent self. 20 to 23. Yatro paramate chittam
यत्रो परमते चित्तम्
निरुद्धं योगसेवया
योगसेवया
यत्र चैवात्मनात्मानम्
यत्र चैवात्मनात्मानम्
पश्यनात्मनि तुष्यति
पश्यनात्मनि तुष्यति
सुखम् आत्यन्तिकं यत्तत्
सुखम् आत्यन्तिकम् यत्तत्
बुद्धिग्राह्यम् अतीन्द्रियम्
बुद्धिग्राह्यम् अतीन्द्रियम्
वेति यत्र न चैवायम्
वेति यत्र न चैवायम्
स्थितश्चलति तत्त्वतः
स्थितश्चलति तत्त्वतः
यं लब्ध्वा चापरं लाभम्
यम् लब्ध्वा चापरम् लाभम्
मन्यतेनाधिकं ततम्
मन्यतेनाधिकम्
ततः यस्मिन् स्थितो न दुःखेन
यस्मिन् स्थितो न दुःखेन
गुरुणापि विचाल्यते
गुरुणापि विचाल्यते
तं विद्या दुःखसंयोग
तं विद्या दुःखसंयोग
वियोगं योगसंज्ञितम्
वियोगं योगसंज्ञितम्
Translation.
In the state of
Perfection called trance or samadhi, one's mind is completely restrained from material mental activities by practice of yoga. This perfection is characterized by one's ability to see the self by the pure mind and to relish and rejoice in the self. In that joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness, realized through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth, and upon gaining this, he thinks there is no greater gain. Being situated in such a position, one is never shaken, even in the midst of greatest difficulty. This indeed is actual freedom from all miseries arising from material contact. 24. सनिश्चयेन युक्तव्यो
निश्चयेन युक्तव्यो
योगनिर्विण्णचेतसा
योगो निर्विण्णचेतसा
सङ्कल्पप्रभवान् कामांस्
सङ्कल्प प्रभवान् नामांस्
त्यक्त्वा सर्वान् शेषतः
त्यक्त्वा सर्वान् शेषतः
मनसैवेन्द्रियग्रामम्
मनसैवेन्द्रियग्रामम्
विनियम्य समन्ततः.
विनियम्य समन्ततः.
Translation. One should engage oneself in the practice of yoga with determination and faith, and not be deviated from the path. One should abandon without exception all material desires born of mental speculation, and thus control all the senses on all sides by the mind. 25th. शनेः शनेरुपरमेद् शनेरुपरमेद् बुद्ध्या धृतिगृहीतया आत्मसंस्थं मनः कृत्वा न किञ्चिदपि चिन्तयेत्. Translation. Gradually, step by step, one should become situated in trance by means of intelligence, sustained by full conviction, and thus the mind should be fixed on the self alone, and should think of nothing else. 26. Yato yato nischalati manaschanchalamastiram tatastato niyamyaitat atmanyeva vasham nayet. You're okay? Translation. From wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, one must certainly withdraw it and bring it back under the control of the self. Verse 27. Prashanta manasa hyenam yoginam sukhamuttamam upaiti shantarajasam brahma bhutam akalmasham. Translation. The yogi whose mind is fixed on me verily attains the highest perfection of transcendental happiness. He is beyond the mode of passion. He realizes his qualitative identity with the Supreme, and thus he is freed from all reactions to past deeds. Verse 28. Yunjanevam sadatmanam yogi vigata kalmashaha sukhena brahma samsparsham atyantam sukham ashnute. Translation. Thus the self-controlled yogi, constantly engaged in yoga practice, becomes free from all material contamination and achieves the highest stage of perfect happiness in transcendental loving service to the Lord. Chapter 6, verse 29. Sarva bhuta sthamatmanam Sarva bhutani chatmani Ikshate yoga yuktatma Sarvatra samadarshanaha. Translation. A true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. Verse 30. Is it tiring? Fun? Yo mam pashyati sarvatra sarvam cha mai pashyati tasyaham na pranashyami sacha me na pranashyati. Translation. For one who sees me everywhere and sees everything in me, I am never lost, nor is he ever lost to me. Verse 31. Sarva bhuta sthitam yo mam bhajate katvam astitah sarvatha vartamanopi sayogi mai vartate. Translation. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Super Soul, knowing that I and the Super Soul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. 32. Atmaupamyena sarvatra samam pashyati Arjuna sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo mataha. Translation. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true quality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. Arjuna uvacha. You want to go out? She wants to come in? No problem. Arjuna uvacha योऽयं योगस्त्वया प्रोक्तः
योऽयं योगस्त्वया प्रोक्तः
साम्येन मधुसूदन
साम्येन मधुसूदन
एतस्याहं न पश्यामि
एतस्याहं न पश्यामि
चञ्चलत्वात् स्थितिं स्थिराम्.
चञ्चलत्वात् स्थितिं स्थिराम्.
Translation: Arjuna said, O Madhusudan, the system of yoga which you have summarized appears impractical and undurable to me, for the mind is restless and unsteady. Hare Krishna. 4 more verses, 3 more verses. Verse 34. Chanchalam hi manah Krishna
चञ्चलं हि मनः कृष्ण
Pramati balavadridham
प्रमाथि बलवदृढम्
Tasyaham jagratam manye
तस्याहं निग्रहं मन्ये
Sari tasyaham nigraham manye
तस्याहं निग्रहं मन्ये
Vayuriva sudushkaram.
वायोरिव सुदुष्करम्.
I'm reading my husband's message while reading this. That's why I went wrong. Translation: For the mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, and very strong, O Krishna, and to subdue it, I think, is more difficult than controlling the wind. Yeah. Can we control the wind also? Imagine where are we, then. He say, I can control the wind, but I can't control we can't even control the wind. So we finished. So why are we doing this chapter? Let's see. Verse 35. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
श्रीभगवानुवाच
Asamshayam Mahabaho
असंशयं महाबाहो
Mano Durnigraham Chalam
मनो दुर्निग्रहं चलम्
Abhyasena tu Kaunteya
अभ्यासेन तु कौन्तेय
Vairagyena cha griyate
वैराग्येण
Chagriyate. Translation: Lord Shri Krishna said, O mighty armed son of Kunti, it is undoubtedly very difficult to curb the restless mind, but it is possible by suitable practice and by detachment. Last verse. Asamyaitatmana yogo
असंयेतात्मना योगो
Dushprapa iti me matihi
दुष्प्राप इति मे मतिः
Vashyatmana tu yatata
पश्यात्मना तु यतता
Shakyo vaptum upayatah.
शक्यो वाप्तुम् उपायतः.
Translation: For one whose mind is unbridled, self-realization is difficult work. But he whose mind is controlled and who strives by appropriate means is assured of success. That is my opinion. And this is how we start the next part, success and failure. So can we go back to verse number 10? And before I can start elaboration, I'd like to say our prayers. Introduction, page number 1. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृन्द। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Just read a quick review. Verses 10 to 36 is Ashtanga Yoga or Dhyan Yoga or Eightfold Mystic Yoga. They are all interchangeably used words. So sometimes I'll say Ashtanga Yoga, sometimes I'll say Eightfold Path. Ashta means 8, Anga is fold or path. Correct? So here I'll interchangeably use those same words. So don't get confused. Dhyan Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga or Eightfold Mystic Path. Okay? So what does it mean? One way to achieve control of mind is through the process of Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyan Yoga or the practice of meditation. Correct? Krishna explains exactly how the ancient path was practiced in the bygone ages. How exactly? Actually meditation, every yuga has its dharma or a key to happiness or a search for happiness which ends, search for the Lord, or how a trip to go back to Godhead. There are keys, there are various keys. So in Satyayuga it was meditation, it was Dhyan Yoga. People actually practice this eightfold path. Do you remember last class I had written that 8 paths? Yama, Niyama. Is it there with you right now? So I don't have it. Can we read it once? Last class I had written it on the board. Yama, Niyama, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharan, Dhyan, Samadhi. This is the eightfold path. Ashtanga. Ashtanga. There are 8 steps. Can we jump the steps?
No.
It's like a ladder. It goes one by one. It starts with Yama and Niyama, certain do's and don'ts. So if you see, we start with that. There are certain do's, there are certain don'ts. Correct? And one more part I have added to this table here on the board is how is Bhakti Yoga preferable? Because this is what Krishna is going to come to in the end. So instead of revising at that point, let's simultaneously write. So when we actually find these points in the end of the class, end of this topic, we'll have it already. Correct? And if you check in the purports also, Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON, he also already writes in every particular purport, he writes how this is impractical for Kali Yuga, because this was practiced in Satyuga. What was practiced in Treta Yuga, which was the next yuga after Satya? Yajna, fire sacrifices. Because meditation actually became impractical for people even in the Treta Yuga. What to speak about Kali Yuga? In Treta Yuga, meditation became obsolete. People, what is the age limit for Kali Yuga? 100. We can say at least 100. At least I know of people who lived, 100. We can't say that. That will be like a stretch to say 100, but still. And what was the lifespan in Satyuga? A lakh. 1 lakh years is what you require to reach that Samadhi stage. The Ashtanga, the topmost is Samadhi. And this is the option which Krishna is giving Arjun. And that was in Dwapar Yuga. And we're reading this in Kali Yuga. Anyway, second Treta was Fire sacrifices. After fire sacrifices, in Dwapar came the deity worship. Correct? Again, by the time was meditation obsolete?
Yeah.
Yes. And what about fire sacrifices? Again impractical. So deity worship, in every person had to worship a personal form of the Lord. Correct? At home. And then after that in Kali Yuga was it practical? Difficult. So then that is what we're going to read here. So chanting came in. Right? How this ancient path was practiced in bygone ages. How exactly it was done by yogis. This is what the entire chapter, at least verses 10 to 36, is about, how it was practiced then. Living in seclusion, number 1. What? Practicing celibacy. We are out. And under strict regulations of eating and sleeping. The yogi would sit in a perfectly erect position. You know, we had this particular verse where the body, neck and the head have to be in the same line. I can't even sit like that. Focusing his consciousness on the Supreme Soul within. Yeah, and actually his consciousness should be concentrated on the Super Soul, on the Paramatma. Now this is how it's exactly done. Correct? Now, despite the distractions of mind and body, the yogi would continue his focused meditation for many, many years. Imagine the body has hunger pangs, mosquitoes, and so many needs of the bodies. But then still this yogi would sit and concentrate. He had that determination. The yogi would continue his focused meditation for many years, maintaining stillness and complete silence. It's impossible for ladies. Hearing this strict discipline, Arjun admits his amazement. Actually, this practice seems impractical and unendurable, is what he says in verse number 31, 32, 32, I think. Right? He exclaims, to discipline the mind is more difficult than controlling the wind. Krishna reassures Arjun that discipline of mind is necessary, and will later explain the yoga process which is more practical and applicable for achieving such discipline. Krishna gives another more powerful process than Ashtanga Yoga, which I am already writing here. And why? We will be seeing it simultaneously. So 6.10, can we read that shloka once? Please repeat. Yogi yunjita satatam,
Yogi yunjita satatam,
Atmanam rahasi stitah,
Atmanam rahasi stitah,
Ekakiyata chittatma,
Ekakiyata chittatma,
Nirashira parigrahah.
Nirashira parigrahah.
Just give me 1 minute. Translation. Number 1, a transcendentalist should always engage his body, mind and self in relationship with the Supreme. I've put that as point 1. Correct? And he should live alone in a secluded place. Now that's an external thing, so I've put it in this, I forgot to write L. Yeah? I've put that in the external category. You understand what a yogi needs to do internally, what he needs to arrange for himself externally, in a secluded place, and this is what he needs to do internally. And then should always carefully control his mind. Correct? Control his mind in what? What does it mean, controlling the mind? Means accept favorable things which will help my yogic practice and reject unfavorable things. That's how you control the mind. Right? The mind will put in so many thoughts. I remember verse number 70 in chapter number 2. Krishna says, Apuryamanam achala pratishta. He says that this verse, Samudra Mapaha, he says, Samudra, have you heard of Samudra, is an ocean. And he says that this mind, how does desires come in this mind? How do the desires flow in the mind? Like how rivers enter oceans. So Krishna is saying the way the desires erupt in our mind is like rivers entering oceans. How do they enter? They're gushing into the ocean. Correct? If you see all the rivers, they're flowing for what? To meet the ocean. Once it's stagnant, it's not called a river. Rivers are flowing in the oceans. That's how desires are flowing erupting in our mind. So Krishna says this is how it works, and you need to control. What are favorable desires is what I fulfill. Ones which are unfavorable is that I reject. So accept favorable, reject unfavorable. This is the function of controlling the mind. And what is next? He should be free from desires and feelings of possessiveness. Correct? Now in the purport, I want you to go to the second paragraph. I'm skipping the first paragraph. I want you to go to the second paragraph, which starts with nevertheless. Is it there?
Yeah.
I'm reading it. Nevertheless, all of these are instructed herewith to be constantly engaged in their particular pursuits, so that they may come to the highest perfection sooner or later. What is the point of all these things? Samadhi, where you constantly think of Krishna and you never forget Krishna. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that here? Is this the point that we're trying to attain in Samadhi? Where a person, this yogi, is supposed to constantly think of Krishna. The first business of a transcendentalist is to keep the mind always on Krishna. That's how it's going to be controlled. One should always think of Krishna and not forget him even for a moment. That's actually what happens in bhakti. Concentration of the mind on the Supreme is called Samadhi. That is what trance is all about. In order to concentrate the mind, one should always remain in seclusion and avoid disturbance by external objects. He should be very careful to accept favorable and reject unfavorable conditions that affect his realization. And in perfect determination, he should not hanker after unnecessary material things that entangle him by feelings of possessiveness. How do material things entangle us? When we start possessing it in our mind. When we think that this is mine or this is mera, what happens? The fear, the greed, everything lurks in. Everything starts entering. Correct? So here we cover these points in this paragraph. Next paragraph. All these perfections and precautions are perfectly executed when one is directly in Krishna consciousness. What does that mean? That means bhakti yoga. Because direct Krishna consciousness means self-abnegation, wherein there is very little chance for material possessiveness. In bhakti yoga, when you are in love, do you think about yourself or your loved one? What does that person need? This is what self-abnegation is all about. Self-abnegation means I don't think about myself. I think about the object of love. So is there any chance of material possessiveness here?
No.
This is covered. This is how this point is covered. Constantly thinking of Krishna means what? I leave everything aside? No. Keep thinking about what Krishna wants me to do in this human birth. Correct? Then, Rupa Goswami characterizes Krishna consciousness in this way. This is a definition of Krishna consciousness. These two verses. Anasaktasya vishayan yatharham upayunjatah nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate prapanchikataya buddhya hari sambandhu vastana mumukshubhi parityago vairagyam falgu katyate. Now Krishna here, Rupa Goswami, he's one of the 6 Goswamis in the altar. Have you seen? There are 6 Goswamis who are standing. The first person is Rupa Goswami. His spiritual master is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They are the direct disciples of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, this disciple, he wrote books emphasizing more about Krishna consciousness. So this verse, he defines what is actual renunciation and what is fake renunciation. Falgu means fake. When one is not attached to anything, but at the same time accepts everything in relation to Krishna, one is rightly situated above possessiveness. Second para. One, on the other hand, one who rejects everything without knowledge of its in relationship to Krishna is not as complete in his renunciation. In this book, Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, he says, what is Yukta Vairagya? What is Yukta Vairagya? Knows that everything belongs to Krishna. I always give this example. If I go to someone else's house and say that I have given it up, is it real Vairagya?
No.
It doesn't even belong to me. Imagine I come to your house and I say कि मैंने ये घर त्याग दिया. It doesn't even, you will tell me that it doesn't even belong to you. So everything belongs to Krishna. What can I renounce? It has to be mine for me to renounce. Correct? Therefore, am I free from feelings of possessiveness when I understand that everything belongs to Krishna?
Yeah.
Now the key of Vairagya is, I don't use this thing for my own sense gratification. I use it for the gratification of Krishna. Is that easy? It's an art. You have to learn. Slowly, you learn. That's how you learn from devotees who have already been practicing that. Correct? So can I say that this classroom, this AC is Maya? No, because we're using it for Krishna consciousness. Correct? So is anything Maya? Can we put anything in category of Maya? It belongs to Krishna. When it belongs to Krishna and when I use it for Krishna's service, it stops becoming material. My possessiveness towards that thing breaks, because I immediately realize my children belong to Krishna. So do I take care of them? Yes. Because they put under my care. My husband belongs to Krishna. I'm reminding myself. Husband belongs to Krishna. So should I be rude to him? No, when I hurt him, I hurt Krishna. That time when someone hurts your child, are you hurt? Yeah. That's how most of the fights start, when things begin. In schools, when something happens to your children, you take it up you have a personal grudge with the parent also. So when you hurt a child of Krishna, Krishna is hurt. Right? So if you look at that way, that is called Yukta Vairagya. That feeling of possessiveness breaks, because everything belongs to Krishna. How can I renounce? It's foolishness. I'm reminding myself, I'm not telling you all. A Krishna conscious person well knows that everything belongs to Krishna. This is re-emphasizing. And thus he is always free from feelings of personal possession. As such, he has no hankering for anything on his own personal account. He knows how to accept things in favor of Krishna consciousness, how to reject things unfavorable to Krishna consciousness. He is always aloof from material things because he is always transcendental. He is always alone, having nothing to do with persons not in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, a person in Krishna consciousness is a perfect yogi. So, bhakti yogi is a perfect yogi. The same thing Krishna says in 6.47. That a bhakti yogi is a perfect yogi because he already covers up all these points. We already saw in 6.10. Now, how does he cover up points in 6.11 and 12? They're together, so we'll read it together. Am I going fast?
No.
6.11. Shuchau deshe pratisthapya sthiram asanamatmanah natyuchritam nati neecham chailajina kushottaram tatraikagram manah kritva yata chittendriya kriyah upavishyasane yunjad yogamatma vishuddhaye. We'll read the translation. Start. To practice yoga, one should go to a secluded place and lay shosha grass on the ground and then cover it with deerskin and a soft cloth. The seat should be neither too high nor too low and should be situated in a sacred place. The yogi should then sit on it very firmly and practice yoga to purify the heart
by controlling his mind, senses
and activities and fixing the mind on one point. Correct? So here there are some do's and don'ts. Starts with a sacred place. Not just any place. The place has to be sacred. The place must be filled with some positive vibrations. Not a gymnasium. Okay. Can we read? Purport. Sacred place refers to place of pilgrimage. Correct? The first word that Krishna uses here is Shuchau. Shuchau Deshe. That means a sacred place refers to place of pilgrimage. In India, the yogis, the transcendentalists or the devotees all leave home and reside in sacred places such as Prayag, Mathura, Vrindavan, Rishikesh, Haridwar. In solitude practice yoga where sacred rivers like Yamuna and Ganges flow. Correct? This is often not possible, especially for expecting too much, right? Only Westerners. The so-called yoga societies in big cities may be successful in earning material benefit, but they are not at all suitable for actual practice of yoga, because yoga means linking with the Supreme Lord. Correct? Remember we had the analogy of a washing machine and a TV? Yeah. What it is meant for. Yeah. Can I wash clothes in the TV? No, I wish, but you can't. Yeah. You can't wash clothes because it's meant for something else. Yoga is meant for linking ourselves with the Supreme Lord. One who is not self-controlled and one whose mind is not undisturbed cannot practice meditation. Therefore, in Brihad Naradiya Puran, it is said that in Kali Yuga, the present age, the present Yuga, when people in general are short-lived. Do we have 1 lakh years to live? When we talk about someone and a person enters and we say, 100 years. Imagine if you have to tell that person 1 lakh years. They immediately die with a heart attack. What to speak about 1 lakh years?
Too much.
100 years itself feels... Bapre. Yeah, you never know, someone might want to live long.
Someone tells you कि 100 is so such yoga, but we'll say no.
Imagine giving a benediction of 1 lakh years. So Krishna, here Prabhupada is writing, people in general are short-lived, slow in spiritual realization and always disturbed by various anxieties. The best means of spiritual realization is chanting the holy name of the Lord. This is written where? In Brihad Naradiya Puran. What is that shloka? Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam. Kalau. Kalau means in Kali Yuga. Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva gatir anyata. If you recognize, if you just check in the verse, things are mentioned 3 times. Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Nam. And then again, Kalau, Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva. Naste means no. Eva means certainly. And this certainly is mentioned 3 times. There's absolutely no chance of deliverance if you're not chanting the name of Hari. Hare Nam is the name of Hari. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, this Kali Yuga, every yuga has its, definition. The definition of Kali Yuga is age of quarrel and hypocrisy. If you put in a group, you will quarrel. If you put alone, then we act as hypocrites. How is that? When we are alone, we do things that we will not do, in front of other people. That, that line is there, character means what you do alone.
Yes.
Right? When we are alone, we'll do things otherwise what we can't do, in a group. And if we put in a group, we start quarreling. So what to do, People can't be alone, they can't be in a group. So that's why a miserable position. We're in a family, we fight. When we are alone, we miss the family. Correct? So we are miserable. In this age of quarrel and hypocrisy, the only means of deliverance is chanting the holy name of Hari. There is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other gati. Gati means no other way. Is that okay? So we have 2 options. We can do 1 more verse. We can stop here. 1 more? Okay. (13) and 14 is together. So we finish this much. Next verse I'll start writing first. We'll just read this verse first. Samam kaya shiro grivam.
Samam kaya shiro grivam.
1 second, has the prasad come yet?
No,
She counted and she gets it. Just see on the way out if you can. Thank you, very good. Samam kaya shiro grivam.
Samam kaya shiro grivam.
Dharayan achalam stiraha.
Dharayan achalam stiraha.
Sampreksha nasikagram swam.
Sampreksha nasikagram swam.
दिशश्चानवलोकयन्
दिशश्चानवलोकयन्
प्रशान्तात्मा
प्रशान्तात्मा विगतभीर्
ब्रह्मचारी व्रते स्थितः
ब्रह्मचारी व्रते स्थितः
मनः संयम्य मच्चित्तो
मनः संयम्य मच्चित्तो
युक्त आसीत मत्परः.
युक्त आसीत मत्परः.
Translation: One should hold one's body, neck and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. Thus, with an unagitated, subdued mind, devoid of fear, completely free from sex life, one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life. Now again, there are some external and internal things. So can I erase this? 13 and 14, Krishna says one should hold one body, neck and head erect in a straight line and stare steadily at the tip of the nose. That's point 1 and point 2 in external points in Ashtanga Yoga. What are the internal ones? First, unagitated, subdued mind. Point 2, devoid of fear. That's Vigata Bhir. That words means devoid of fear. Number 3, completely free from sex life. I've added that in the external. This includes masturbation. Right back. Then girl, I've met her before. No? Once, Shekha. So one should meditate upon me within the heart and make me the ultimate goal of life is point 3 and point 4 in internal. Is that okay? So now we come to how is Bhakti Yoga preferable? So number 1, Dhyan and Gyan Yoga. Now with this at least it is clear that Dhyan and Gyan Yoga do not admit Grihasthas. Arjun is a Brahmachari or a Grihastha? It's a Grihastha. And Krishna is giving this option. Is this option even applicable to Arjuna? No. Is it applicable to us? No. So Bhakti Yoga accepts a Grihastha Brahmachari. Who's a Grihastha Brahmachari? Yeah. Sexual relationship only with wife is actually a Grihastha Brahmachari. Correct? Now, on the page there is one, the second paragraph, there is one shloka by Yajnavalkya. Is that there? Karmana manasa vacha sarvavasthasu sarvada sarvatra maithuna tyago brahmacharyam prachakshate. It means the vow of brahmacharya is meant to help one completely abstain from sex indulgence in work, words and mind. That means this includes masturbation. At all times, under all circumstances and in all places. No one can perform correct yoga practice through sex indulgence. Brahmacharya is taught, therefore, in a Gurukul system, it's taught from childhood. When the children are put in a Gurukul, it's a schooling form in the Vedic times. At that point itself, the child would practice brahmacharya, complete abstinence from sex. Children at the age of 5 are sent to Gurukul. I'm reading from the purport, second paragraph, or the place of spiritual master, and the master trains the young boys in strict discipline of becoming brahmacharis. Without such practice, no one can make advancement in any yoga, whether it be dhyan, gyan or bhakti. Now, how can I write this point now? Right? Next, one who however follows the rules and regulations of married life. It's just small point, sorry. That is, what is the regulation of married life? Having sexual relationship only with his wife. And that also under regulation is also called a... So such a restrained household of brahmachari may be accepted in the bhakti school, but the Gyan and Dhyan schools do not even admit household of brahmacharis. They require complete abstinence. So from this niyam and yama and niyam aspect, can you go to the third? Because the very don'ts here is third point in externals. Correct? So in the Bhakti school, a householder brahmachari is allowed controlled sex life because the cult of Bhakti Yoga is so powerful that one automatically loses sexual attraction with superior